Welcome to all of you. Myself Archana Sharma from Noida Institute of Engineering and Technology, and I am here to deliver my lecture on the topic pallet. Okay. So, in the previous lecture we have already discussed about the pallet process. So, what is pallets? Pallets are your small fine spherical powders or your granules, and they are generally having the size range in the size range in between 1500 micrometers. Okay. And due to their small size range, they are used for the various purposes, such as they can be used for the delivery of the injection. They can also be used for the oral delivery system. Okay. Pallets have the then about introduction, then we discuss about the what are the advantages. So, because of its small size and shape, they are the better candidates for manufacturing the immediate release pellets, sustained release pellets. The only disadvantage is that it is a expensive process and it requires a lot of variables during the processing variables during the manufacturing of the pellets. So, this is the disadvantage. Then we discuss about the what are the different mechanism of the drug release from the pellet. So, different mechanism is diffusion, erosion, osmosis, then diffusion, how the drug is released from the pellet. Then we have discussed about what are the formulation requirement, formulation additive requirement. In this we have discussed in detail about the agglomeration inducer, binders, fillers, separating agents, their different roles. Now, after this introduction about the pellets, now the next thing is that how we are going to manufacture the pellets. So, what are the different methods of preparation? First is drug layering method, second is your hot melt extrusion method, third is your extrusion and spheronization method, fourth is your compression, fifth is boiling, sixth is freeze pelletization, seventh is spray drying and spray congealing, and eighth is your cryo pelletization method. So, we are going to discuss all this method one by one in detail. So, first is your drug layering method. So, as the name indicates, drug layering method, what does it mean? That in this method we are going to deposit the successive layer of the drug over the core material or any inert substance. So, अगर हमारे पास यहाँ पे सपोज करो कोई ग्रैन्यूल है इनर्ट सब्सटेंस का, और वी कैन यूज द ड्रग इटसेल्फ, ड्रग ग्रैन्यूल itself as an core material. ठीक है, एंड देन उसके ऊपर हम डिपॉजिट करेंगे सक्सेसिव लेयर्स ऑफ द ड्रग अलॉन्ग with the help of the binding agent to form a desired spherical pellet. Clear? Okay. So, drug layering technique. In this technique, drug layers are deposited on a core material, crystal or granules from solution, suspension or dry powders. The core may be made up of drug itself or it can be inert starter seed. So, as I told as I discussed with you all, that in this technique what we are going to do? We are going to deposit the successive layer of drug onto the surface of the core material. Clear? Okay. Then layering involves the deposition of successive layer of dry powders or liquid droplets of drug and binding into inert seed. So, we can give this layering. Okay. We can deposit this layering, either we can deposit directly the dry powder layers. Okay. हम ड्राई पाउडर में भी दे सकते हैं, ड्राई पाउडर, ओके, और वी कैन डिपॉजिट अ लिक्विड ड्रॉपलेट्स ऑल्सो. liquid droplets or solutions. Clear? So, layering involves the deposition of successive layers of dry powders or liquid droplets of drug and binding into inert seed. The inner part is called as the core and the outer deposited layer can be considered as shell. So, in this the inner core material on which we are depositing the successive layers of the drug, either it is in the form of powder or it is in the form of liquid droplets. Okay. So, the inner portion is called as core and the outer shell and the outer portion or the outer layer is called as shell. Okay. Now, layering is classified into 3 categories: direct palletization, powdered layer, and either the third one is we can give solution or suspension layering. Okay. So, in direct palletization we do not use any kind of core material or an inert seed material. हम यहाँ पे कोई core material नहीं use कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. इसमें हम directly pellets बना रहे हैं, ठीक है. Either we are using high shear mixers or we are using fluidized bed equipments, ठीक है, to form the pellets. It is the process in which homogeneous pellets are formed without any detectable core. It is carried out in high shear mixtures and fluidized bed equipment. Another one is powder layer. In this process, dry powder of drug or excipient or both is spread. Okay. So, as the name suggests, powder layer. So, that means कि we are depositing a layer of powder. Okay. We are depositing a layer of powder over your core material. Okay. In this process, dry powder of drug or excipient or both is spread at the same time when you are spraying the powder, that is API plus excipient mixture at the same time you are spraying the binding agent also. So, that what will happen? Okay. So, that when you are spraying the binding agent, आपने binding agent जब spray किया तो क्या होगा? When you are spraying the binding agent, this binding agent provide the binding force to the particles of the powder and they get intact or deposit over the surface of the core material. Clear? Okay. Thereby transforming into the form of pellet or a spherical particle. Okay. In this process, dry powder or drug or excipient or both is spread and at the same time binding liquid is also spread separately and result in deposition of successive layer on core. Okay. So, here if we see, this is your powder particles. Okay. On this we spray a binding solution. Okay. We take a core material and with the on that we spray a powder particle and we simultaneously also spray a binding solution. What will happen? The powder particle will get deposited on the core material, okay, into the rolling motion and then we subject it for the drying. During drying, the liquid bridging of the binding solution forms, and then what will happen? Liquid bridge of binding solution is formed, matlab the particles of the powder, they are remain in close contact with each other. Okay. And now the particles of the powder are bind together. Now they are transforming into a solid bridge or a pellet or a spherical particle. The tangential spray or centrifugal spray fluidized bed granulator or convectional coating pan can be used to prepare pellets by powder. So, for preparing pellets by the powder layering method, we can use the tangential spray or a centrifugal spray or a fluidized bed granulator for making the pellets. Then the third technique or the third type is solution or suspension layering. Okay. In this techniques, pellets are formed due to deposition of successive layers of solution suspension containing drug and binder on core material, which may be inert substrate, crystal or granules of the drug. So, in the previous technique what we are doing, यहाँ पे हम what we are doing in this technique, we are taking or we are depositing the dry powder, okay, dry powder of drug or excipient, and we are spraying the binding solution at the same time. Okay. Here what we do in this technique, we either take in this technique what we do, we deposit the layers of the solution which contain your drug and binder. ओके तो यहाँ पे हम क्या करेंगे, जो डिपोजिशन हमारा हो रहा है दैट इज़ इन द फॉर्म ऑफ द layers of the form layers, and that layers are from the, जो layers हमारी बनी है वो किसकी है, it is of solution and suspension form. So, basically यहाँ पे हम liquid layering कर रहे हैं. Liquid में हम अपने drug and excipients को we are transforming into the form of liquid, and then we are depositing the layers of the solution and suspension over the core material. Okay. So, in this techniques, pellets are formed due to deposition of successive layer of solution suspension containing drug and binder on core material, which may be inert substrate, crystal or granules of the drug. The drug particles are dissolved or suspended in solvent with or without binder. Droplets of the binding liquid is spread onto the surface of the nuclei. So, here as we see, यहाँ पे आपके पास क्या है, that आपके पास एक core material है, ठीक है, आपने उस पर we are spraying the solution or we are depositing the layer of the solution of the powder or the depositing the layer of the solution of the powder along with the spraying of the binder solution. Now, what will happen, the particles of the powder they get adhere onto the surface of the core material. Then what will happen, drying, then after drying what will happen, the formation of the liquid bridging, okay, or the binder droplets are formation of the binder droplets, that is liquid bridging process happen. Here all the particles they stick with the core material. Then after that what will happen, again we are continuously depositing the layers of the solution containing drug and polymer onto the core material until a solid bridge is formed. Then after the subsequent deposition of the layer of the solution containing drug and excipient, finally the first layer or the pellet is formed. So, this way of forming the pellet is called as suspension or solution layering. Okay. So, the drug particles are dissolved or suspended in solvent with or without binder. Droplets of the binding liquid is spread onto the surface of the nuclei. During drying, the liquid evaporates, then the dissolved substance crystallize out, and capillary action forces the particles towards each other and towards the inert sheet, forming solid bridge. So, when we are spraying the when we are drying the when we are drying these liquid layers, what will happen? The liquid from the liquid from the material, it will get evaporate, and the dissolved substances, it will crystallizes out, and the capillary action forces the particles towards each other and towards the inert side, thereby it will form the solid bridge. Layering is also carried out in fluid bed system. So, we can also perform the layer in fluid bed system, and these are of 3 types: top spray, bottom spray and rotor or tangential spray. So, this is the 3 flow pattern in which in the different positions the spray nozzles are attached, okay, and accordingly your layering is carried out. Top spray. In this method is used when we perform the coating for the taste masking purpose. Okay. So, in that case, generally when what we do, we perform the coating for the purpose of the taste masking and taste marking purpose. Coating for a taste masking is to be applied, and granules of drug are combined with excipient. Hot melt coating, the long expansion chamber allows the particle to decelerate in high velocity fluidized air system for much longer period, as well as minimized agglomeration. The nozzle positioned in such a way to achieve uniform spray without spray drying. So, if we look into the diagram, what will happen here? There is a perforated plate is there, over which the feed is there, okay, and from the bottom there is a spray nozzle is there, through which we are continuously spraying the solution, and from the bottom the air enters, and when it enters, and when the air enters the system, okay, what will happen? The particle will decelerate into a high velocity fluidized air, okay, for a longer period of time. So, the particle will decelerate in the stream of high velocity of air, and they remain in the state of fluidized, they remain in the stage of fluidized, they remain in the fluidized state, thereby they minimize the chance of agglomeration. The nozzle positioned in such a way to achieve uniform spray without spray drying. Then Wurzer or bottom spray. In this method, the spray nozzle is kept in the bottom. So, drug layering is to be done on core when the dose is in low to medium range. So, this type of method is especially used when the dose is in the low or the medium range, and it consists of 3 parts: a product container with bottom fitted perforated plate for fluidization of particle, a Wurzer positioned at the bottom in such a way to assert flow of flower shaped circulation particle, and a spray nozzle. Okay. So, in this system here then next is your rotor tangential spray. So, in the rotor tangential spray, what will happen? The position of the spray nozzle is in the tangential direction. Okay. In the top spray, the position of the spray nozzle is in the top direction. In the Wurzer or bottom spray, the position of the spray nozzle is in the bottom, and in the rotor or tangential spray system, the position of the nozzle is in the tangential. So, modified generally we use this rotor tangential spray system for the modified release film coating to a wide range of multi-particulate product, drug layering when the dose is medium to high, in spheronization for producing spheres. Then next come to the another technique, that is halt melt extrusion. Halt melt extrusion is a process of converting raw material into a product of uniform shape and density by forcing it through a die under controlled condition. Okay. So, what we do? We convert the raw material, okay, and then we transform it into a desired shape by forcing it to come out through a die cavity, okay, under the controlled condition. Halt melt extrusion is carried out using a extruder. So, here if we see, this is the halt melt extrusion process and this is your screw extruder, which is responsible for the transportation of the material. Okay. So, hot melt extrusion is carried out using extruder, a barrel containing 1 or 2 rotating screw that transport material down the barrel. So, here if we look into the diagram, this whole extruder, it contains 1 or 2 screw which is responsible for transporting the material down the barrel. Then the extruder consists of 4 distinct parts: an opening through which material enters the barrel, which may have a hopper filled with the material to be extruded or be continuously supplied in a controlled manner by 1 or more external feeders. Okay. So, first thing what it has? It has an opening. Okay. So, it is having an opening through which the hopper is attached, and that hopper is containing the feed material which continuously supply the material to the extruder in a precise and controlled manner. Then a conveying process or a section which comprise the barrel and the screw that transport and where applicable mix the material. So, another system is a conveying process section which comprise the barrel and the screw that transport the material, that is this barrel and this is screw which is responsible for the transportation. Then an orifice or a die, this is here an orifice or a die for shaping the material as it leaves. Then downstream auxiliary equipment for cooling, cutting or collecting the finished product. So, downstream there is a cooling system for cooling, cutting or collecting the finished product. In halt melt extrusion, a blend of polymer and excipient in powder form is transferred by a rotating screw through the heated barrel in the extruder. In hot melt extrusion process, extruder channel is conventionally divided into 3 sections: feed zone, melting zone, metering zone. Okay. So, if we look at here the feed zone, then melting zone, then here is the metering zone. In the feeding section, the material is transported from the hopper into the barrel. The molten mass is continuously pumped through the die at the end of the extruder and rapidly solidifying when existing the machine. In the metering zone, the pulsating flow is reduced to ensure a uniform delivery rate through the die cavity, which is attached at the end of the barrel. There are 2 types of the extruder. Okay. There are 2 types of the extruder available. One is your single screw extruder and the other is your twin screw extruder. So, in this there is a single screw is attached, and here in this there is a 2 screw extruder is attached. In single screw extruder are primarily used for melting and conveying polymer to extrude them into a continuous shapes, whereas twin screw extruder are used for melt mixing polymers with additional materials, pigments, mixture and API, and for devolatilization process. Okay. So, single screw extruder is simple. It is generally used for simply melting and conveying the polymers to the extruder to form a uniform shape, whereas twin screw extruder is generally used for melting and mixing the polymers, and also it is also useful for the additional materials such as pigments, fillers, and for the devolatilization process. So, here and here in the hot melt extrusion method, if we compare hot melt extrusion method and the drug layering method, in the drug layering method, what we are going, we are continuously depositing the successive layers of the drug, either in the form of dry powder or in the form of the solution onto a core or a inert substance or a crystal or a granule. Then with the help of the binding solution, it get deposited and then we form the pellet. But in the hot melt extrusion, what we do? We do not deposit the successive layers, but we directly mix the excipient and the API, and then we form a molten mass or a wet mass, and then we subject it to the extruder, and then finally a desired shape is obtained by passing it through the die cavity. That is it. This is the reference. Thank you.